Good evening. I can't hear you. Good evening. By the way, isn't that about the most annoying thing a speaker can do? It's so ridiculous. You know, you're already having a hostile situation, all right? You know, you guys are talking, you're drinking, you're eating, you're drinking, you're doing business development, you're drinking, and then someone comes out. First there's this big voice, and then someone comes out and tries to talk to you, and you really don't want to talk to them, and they start making you interact. I never understand this. Whenever I'm in the audience, I'm thinking, dude, come on. You know, I have a fork, I'm sitting down, you have a microphone, you're on the stage, there's a line here, you go ahead and just continue doing it. What public... Oh no. Excuse me. What public speaking course do you learn this in? I gotta get my, you know, like the audience isn't paying attention, so start talking to them. All right, by the way, did I say that's the most annoying thing? The most annoying thing is when they do it to you in the morning. Now look, at our symposium, we have so many things we want to show you, so many events we want you to enjoy. We have to make as many as we can. We have these early breakfasts. They start at 7 a.m. in the morning. We had a great one today with Colonel Jimmy Jenkins. And yeah! And the person is, by the way, he didn't do this. I checked on this. But, you know, they're so bubbly. Good morning. I can't hear you. Good morning. And I'm sitting there, you know, going in and out of consciousness. And, you know, I was up till 3 a.m. in the morning doing business development. I'm there at 7 a.m. in the morning. 7 a.m. This is not a good morning. I'm wearing a suit and tie at 7 a.m. in the morning. You're lucky I'm not wearing a bathrobe. Look, just get on with it, and maybe I won't fall asleep. But I'm going to get on with it right now and talk about a few other things. First of all, it is so freaking cold outside. I can't believe it. It's like the day after tomorrow. It's ridiculous. All right, by the way, I don't know who came prepared. Sure, the people who actually live here, I get that, you know, you have your clothes, you're coming in and out of here, but, you know, plenty of us came from out of town. There was no way we could have prepared for this. Although I was thinking about it, and I am here for 4 days, so I figure if I wear all my clothes at the same time, maybe I won't be that cold. Oh, thank you. Well, anyway, welcome to the 29th annual Space, and I can't move. I like when I can move my, is it okay if I move like this and talk to you like? It's so hard when you can't move your arms. I'm from New York. This is how we talk. Welcome to the 29th Annual Space Symposium and the Corporate Sponsorship Dinner. But first, I want to introduce you to one of the great minds of science. Can we have the lights on? I know this person is here. Another person's here. I see Bill Nye. No, I'm sorry. No, Bill. No, not you, Bill. No, Bill. Bill, please sit down. Not you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to an extraordinary woman. Her name is Sarah Ellen Voltz. Sarah is a 17-year-old senior at the Cheyenne Mountain High School here in Colorado Springs. Wait a second. I haven't even, look, there are plenty of 17-year-old seniors in Cheyenne Mountain High School. Let me tell you what this person has done. She built a laboratory underneath her loft bed in her home to run experiments on algae. And these experiments were to develop algae with improved biofuel capability. For this and her amazing scientific skills, she won the grand prize for the prestigious Intel Science Talent Search Award. She got a $100,000 scholarship. She's also won other, wait, hold on. All right, applaud for her. 100,000 bucks. All right. She's also won other prestigious science awards, and she's also an accomplished actor. She's going to MIT next year, apparently majoring in everything that they have to offer. Sarah, you might as well get used to it. Can you please stand up? Everybody, Sarah Ellen Voltz. And also here this evening is Dr. Voltz and Ms. Voltz, her parents. Can you please stand up as well? Good job, Mom and Dad. Thank you. Sarah, Dr. and Ms. Voltz, it's a privilege to have you here. Sarah, I can sort of relate to you and your experiments. When I was your age, I also did experiments in my bedroom, but usually my parents weren't home. Well, of course, and also they didn't give awards for what I was doing. But now that it's legal in Colorado, they may start giving out awards. You never know. By the way, this is just an aside, just an observation. Isn't it ironic that they finally legalized marijuana and then Hostess Cupcakes and Twinkies goes out of business? Oh, and of course, can I have the lights up one more time for Bill Nye? Bill, thank you. Thank you for being such a good sport. Congrats on the Morrow Award that you won yesterday. Bill, no one has done any more to educate people about science. Thank you for all that you did. Thank you for your great work at the Planetary Society. You have truly changed the world. Thank you, Bill Nye. And thank you all for coming to the symposium and our corporate sponsorship dinner, particularly with how cold it is outside. Thanks for coming out. By the way, this is one of our biggest events, and rightfully so. This is the event where the Space Foundation expresses its gratitude to all of its corporate partners. This is the premier space event of the world, this symposium. But the fact is, and by the way, we never take it for granted, but the fact is, the reason why it is so great is because of you. It's because of your commitments, your resources, your support, your enthusiasm, the people, and the money that you give us, and we're grateful every step of the way. This year we have over 9,000 participants from 42 states and 24 countries. From all over the world, we have 388 companies and 41 government agencies. Yes, there's one government agency that couldn't make it this time, but you know, even bad things happen to really good governments, and that's just the way it goes. But we're looking forward to seeing them next year. Besides the symposium, we use your resources for our great science programs, which increase their reach every year. We cannot say this enough, and we're never going to stop saying it, but thank you so much for all you do for the Space Foundation. Thank you. Now, in particular, I want to thank the Raytheon Corporation for co-sponsoring tonight's dinner. I want to thank the Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Raytheon. Sitting right up here. Thank you. I'd like to thank the El Pomar Foundation, which hosted the corporate appreciation at the Carriage House. There was an event right before this. And now I'm going to introduce, all right, the El Pomar. I apologize. I don't mean to be rude. Just want to move on with the show. But now let me introduce to you our host, who will introduce our guest speaker. Let me introduce you to Bill Hart, Vice President of Raytheon Space Systems.
Good evening, folks. Kind of a tough act to follow there. I'll do my best. Thank you, Lon, and thank you to the Space Foundation for your continued support of the space industry. It's a pleasure to be here with so many of our industry's leaders. Raytheon is proud to sponsor this year's corporate partnership dinner and play an integral role in the National Space Symposium. We believe this is the premier venue for interacting with and learning more from our government industry partners, and this year has been no exception. Let me also share my personal congratulations to Cheryl Voltz. If her accomplishments are any indication, the next generation of leaders you will see in this room will be every bit as innovative as those who pioneered the space industry. I'd like to take a moment now to share with you a short video showcasing Raytheon's vision regarding the promise of space today and the value of our industry.
Space is our compelling horizon.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
We're drawn to it for the unbounded potential it presents, the awesome perspective it affords, and the wealth of innovation it inspires. We've seen the practical benefits space offers, the resources we can conserve, the dangers we can avoid, and the humanitarian aid we're able to render. Today, as always, the promise of space is in the future it helps us envision. We make fresh discoveries and pass them on to the next generation of scientists, dreamers, inventors, and explorers who will face new hurdles and solve long-standing mysteries. Every advance fuels our drive to keep expanding the boundaries. Our aims are both simple and profound. We seek to understand our world, use our greater insight to preserve it, and join with others globally to promote and nurture these ideals. The image comes from space. The innovation comes from Raytheon.
It is now my distinct honor to introduce tonight's featured speaker. It is indeed an understatement to say that General Bob Kaylor has a very big job. He provides the President and Secretary of Defense with a broad range of strategic capabilities and options for the joint warfighter. And he does so through several diverse mission areas, including combating weapons of mass destruction, integrated missile defense, ISR, and global strike. He is responsible for the plans and operations for all U.S. forces conducting strategic deterrence and DoD space and cyberspace operations. He has commanded at the squadron, group, wing, and major command level and has a broad range of operational tours in ICBM, space launch, space control, and missile warning operations. In short, he makes the world a safer place for all of us, and I can't think of a more important job than that. We thank you for being here tonight, sir, and we thank you for your distinguished service. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Commander of the U.S. Strategic Command, General Bob Kaylor.
Well, thank you, Bill, and thank you, Lon. Lon, I got to tell you, I'm a little nervous. This is my first appearance at the Comedy Club. And I was going to start off by saying good evening, but I'm not going to say that. Oh, yes, I am. Good evening. I can't help myself. Thanks for braving the cold and the snow and the wonderful evening to have a springtime in the Rockies. Isn't this great? By the way, in other parts of the country, they call this winter. They only call it springtime here. They don't call it springtime anywhere else. By the way, I've experienced this kind of springtime here before in June. So we could call this summer. Hey, what the hell? My thanks also to Marty, Elliot. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate this. This is always an impressive gathering, and this is one of those events that if it's any possible way to do it, I'm glad to be here. General Shelton, always good. Linda, good to be here with breaking bread with our service component, which is terrific. I think you all know that Air Force Space Command is one of the service components to Strategic Command, and we could not do our jobs without them, and that's for sure. So I'm glad to be here with you tonight, Willie. As you know, we across the government have curtailed an awful lot of our travel, and it was good that I could link up my attendance here with some other visits. It's good to have the component in town here because we can conduct some other business there as well, and as well as the functional component for integrated missile defense. So we've got a busy day tomorrow, but I'm glad to be with all of you tonight. Now, I must say that this isn't the first time that I've spoken at the symposium, and so last evening I was sitting at home between watching the basketball game and trying to finish up this speech, which isn't quite finished yet, which is why I'm stalling. I promise it'll be finished in a minute. One way or the other, it's going to be finished here in a minute. But I like to kind of like Lon, although my jokes are a little more tasteful, Lon. But because of that, I'm out of jokes, and so I said to Marge last night, and many of you in the room know Marge, and so you'd appreciate this. I said, honey, I'm going to need a joke for tomorrow night. And she said, yeah. And then she did what she always does. She picked up her BlackBerry and she started to look up jokes. And so, all right, so here we go. This is the one that Marge gave me last night. So a man is standing in his house when suddenly out on the street there's a high-speed car coming down the street, screeching tires, obviously the engine's racing, and it slides to a stop in the driveway. The door flings open, and the front door bursts in, and this man's wife comes in, and she says, honey, I've just won $350 million in the lottery, pack your bags. And he said, great, should I pack for the beach or the mountain? She said, I don't care, just pack your bags. So I heard that from my wife last night, and then she... Yep, those of you who know her, and she meant that, actually. So I didn't think it was funny. But I'll tell her you thought it was funny. It's actually pretty good. Well, this symposium has been... I actually have a speech to give, so everybody settle down now, and you're going to have to listen to me. No question, though, this symposium has been the premier forum to discuss space issues for over 20 years now, almost 30 when you think about it. The Space Foundation's been around for 29, and I'm honored to be with all of you this evening. I wish I could have attended more of the events today, but the press of real-world events wouldn't permit that. This being the Space Symposium, it wouldn't surprise you, though, that I plan to provide my perspectives regarding United States Strategic Command's space responsibilities. Now, you're obviously, take a look at me, you're going to get a military perspective on some things this evening. That's not the only perspective that there is about space, and I think everybody in this room knows that. You know, our own United States government decided some years ago, in fact all the way back to the Eisenhower administration, to separate civil space from national security space. And we did that for a reason. And I think that has proven to be a pretty good arrangement over the years. It allows us to interact in all the appropriate places where we share things, because among the other things we share between civil space and national security space, we share the industrial base. We share some facilities, we share astronauts, for example, and people. But we've made a distinction in our country between civil space and national security space, and I think for good reason. You're going to hear a national security space perspective from me this evening, and that shouldn't surprise you. It was 11 years ago that Strategic Command assumed the responsibilities of United States Space Command when those two commands merged. Much has happened since then, and I thought you might appreciate my assessment this evening on where we stand a decade into this old new command, because as Strategic Command and its predecessor, Strategic Air Command, my command has been around since 1946. It predates the establishment of the United States Air Force, as a matter of fact. And people say, well, but that was an Air Force thing, it was only an Air Force thing. Let me remind you that SAC was two things. It was a specified combatant command, and it was an Air Force major command. So the combatant command lineage does in fact extend to Strategic Command today. A lot has happened in the last 10 years. A lot has happened in the last 10 minutes, I'm sure, while I've been standing up here talking. Uncertainty and complexity continue to dominate our national security landscape. Today's operating environment is increasingly characterized for the potential for a wide variety of conflict, and probably across all domains. It is an operating environment unlike any we've ever seen before. State and non-state actors alike can employ highly adaptive combinations of strategies and tactics and capabilities to simultaneously and quickly exploit and transit political, geographic, and domain boundaries. Things are different today than they were 10 years ago. These hybrid threats are challenging all of our earlier assumptions. They are stressing our plans, our practices, and our organizational structures. They are compelling unity of effort, and they are demanding flexible and innovative approaches to create effects that are tailored to the unique actors, circumstances, and scenarios that we face. In short, technologies that allow us to move freely about the globe will likely make yesterday's battlefield tomorrow's global battle space. Of course, we recognize that STRATCOM's heritage is nuclear, and we will never waver from the highest vigilance standards of excellence that the nuclear mission demands. However, today's STRATCOM is far more diverse and versatile than ever before, and is positioned to help address both uncertainty and complexity. The missions and forces assigned to this command allow us to gain a global perspective and also to create synergy from a range of strategic capabilities. Those that can create decisive impact, those that can affect large physical areas, those that can act across great distances, those that persist over long periods of time, those that change the status quo in some fundamental way, and those that provide the President ready military options in extreme circumstances. Now, those capabilities and those abilities are unique among the combatant commands. STRATCOM's nuclear and conventional strike, space, cyber, and other capabilities remain foundational to confronting the challenges of the future. The United States can neither deter adversaries and assure allies, nor prevail in conflict without them. Simply put, STRATCOM's responsibilities and capabilities underwrite freedom of action for our nation and generate viable options for our national leaders. Our seemingly diverse missions share commonalities. They are strategic in nature, global in scope, and they are interdependent with the responsibilities and capabilities of the other combatant commands and the whole of the United States government and our key allies. Now, I don't have to remind anyone in this room how important space is to our national security and the security of our allies and partners. It is also important to our economy, to civil activities, and to scientific discovery. Make no mistake, space operations underpin U.S. national military objectives, and they enhance the combat capability of the joint force. No other armed force relies on space as broadly or deeply as the U.S. military, and no other military force derives the same unprecedented operational advantages from its use of space capabilities. Space capabilities have offered us recurring access to denied or distant areas around the globe that has proven vital to monitoring strategic and military developments, as well as supporting and verifying treaty compliance. No one can dispute the value of GPS, satellite communications, weather satellites, ISR, and warning to decision-making, military operations, and homeland security. But times have changed. You heard General Shelton earlier today talk about this as a confluence of events. And if times have changed, as he offered and I would offer as well, we have to change. Things have to be different as we go forward, and I think we all know that. Today's space environment is characterized by more participants, more activity, and the proliferation of a variety of capabilities that eventually can threaten our access to and freedom of action in space during a conflict. Potential adversaries have noted the decisive advantages we have gained by using space. The importance of space and the new realities associated with space have led to updated national policies, new strategies, clear responsibilities, and updated plans. The new presidential-level national space policy in 2010 was followed by a new national security space strategy signed by the Secretary of Defense and Director of National Intelligence in 2011. In 2012, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff issued a first-ever classified national military strategy for space operations. And in December of 2012, the Department of Defense issued a new space policy directive. Taken together, these documents restated a long-held policy commitment that the sustainability and stability of the space environment, as well as free access to and use of space, are vital national interests for the United States of America. These documents also emphasize the free use of space by all for peaceful purposes and stress the importance of partnerships and a strong industrial base. They also charge the Department of Defense with a number of important missions and acknowledge that we must be prepared to protect our space assets, ground stations, and networks if that ever becomes necessary. Responsibilities are equally clear, and here are some things that maybe you didn't know about Strategic Command. Because regarding space, the commander of U.S. STRATCOM is responsible for the following things, and I would mention that when the document that assigns us the responsibilities is signed by the President, it doesn't say that STRATCOM is responsible for it. It says the commander of STRATCOM is responsible. That puts the who in it. And I must say I read that document very closely after I was confirmed for this job. I read it pretty closely before I was confirmed for this job, because it does say the commander of U.S. STRATCOM is responsible for planning and conducting the full range of space operational missions. I'm paraphrasing here. Advocating for space capabilities, serving as the DoD manager for human spaceflight operations, providing warning and assessment of attack on space assets, serving as the single point of contact and representative for military space operational matters, conducting space situational awareness operations for a wide variety of users, to include civil and, as appropriate, commercial and foreign space entities. These are tremendous responsibilities and all have grown in importance, especially the situational awareness responsibility that now consumes a great deal of our time and effort. Now, we don't execute most of these responsibilities from my headquarters in Omaha. Lieutenant General Susan Helms and our Joint Functional Component Command for Space, or JFCC Space for short, plans and executes most of them from her headquarters at Vandenberg. She also runs the Joint Space Operations Center, the JSPOC as everyone calls it, which is the focal point for space operations and supporting activity for all the combatant commands and agencies. Ensuring that space capabilities will be available whenever and wherever they are needed is one of my top priorities. And STRATCOM has spent much of the last year improving our contingency plans and working with our service components to enhance the resilience of our space capabilities. As I said, space situational awareness consumes much of General Helms' time and energy. Now, I often remind her that it helps to make someone who has actually been a satellite responsible for tracking satellites. I think there's poetic justice in that, don't you? Space situational awareness, or SSA for short, is foundational to freedom of action in all domains. SSA involves not only characterizing the dynamic physical environment and the objects in it, but also the electromagnetic spectrum through which we transmit and receive spacecraft commands and mission data. Protecting our assets from unwanted electromagnetic interference is a growing concern, and we are in the process of streamlining procedures to detect, identify, characterize, geolocate, and resolve such problems. We are also providing conjunction analysis and collision warning for a growing number of space operators around the world. Our intent is to reduce the risk of collision that would create dangerous space debris. In essence, we're talking about safety of flight. To give you some sense of the increased workload, over the last several years, STRATCOM has entered into 35 signed commercial SSA sharing agreements. In 2012, we provided orbital data to 90 commercial and foreign and 180 U.S. entities. We reviewed and received nearly 500,000 satellite observations and screened over 1,000 active satellites on a daily basis. From those screenings, we provided over 10,000 conjunction warnings, supported 75 conjunction avoidance maneuvers, and fulfilled over 300 orbital data requests for more than 85 separate entities. Those numbers will continue to grow every year, lending urgency to SSA improvements and establishment of appropriate rules of the road that will govern orbital behavior and allow us to more easily detect problems as they occur. We are also working to improve our partnership with key friends and allies through a concept called Combined Space Operations. This concept is built upon the current Joint Space Operations Center at Vandenberg, with virtual connections between it and other nations' space operations centers around the world. This new approach is similar to operations on the land, at sea, or in the air by enabling partner nations to work together to maintain situational awareness and to synchronize activities when that's appropriate. Now, while improving situational awareness is a key aspect of preparing for the future, we are taking additional steps as well. First, we continue to pursue the very best and brightest people and are working with our service components to ensure they are well trained with the right balance of technical and tactical skills and experience. When you're finished with your degree at MIT, I have a paper I'd like for you to sign. We're very fortunate to have outstanding military, civilian, and contractor professionals with an inspiring level of expertise, drive, and patriotism. It's our biggest challenge to ensure we continue that trend, even in the face of fiscal uncertainty. Access to orbit remains vital to national security, and the key to achieving it is an industrial base that is capable, responsive, and affordable. Diversity in the launch marketplace could prove a positive development. And accordingly, we support the efforts of the Air Force to expand the available industrial base of certified and proven launch providers. The success of other companies, in addition to ULA, is an encouraging step in the right direction. But we must continue to invest in capabilities that assure our access to space. I've mentioned the increased demand on situational awareness. We're going to have to maintain a robust and enduring capability to detect, track, and analyze the tens of thousands of orbiting objects. Clearly, there is an international demand for continued and ever-improving SSA, but challenges remain. New sensors, better integration of existing sensors, and tools like the JSPOC mission system, or JMS, are vital to our future. Paired with better situational awareness, we need rules of the road, as I mentioned earlier. Rules that enhance our national security by helping us focus on the places and activities that may pose a threat. Speed limits may not stop speeders, but they show you who the speeders are. We need these rules to help identify the potential bad actors. We must also improve the resilience of our space, ground, and network components. Here we have to work together to develop new architectures and concepts that take advantage of hosting, ride-sharing, and other ideas that I know all of you are working on. We also need better plans, better operating concepts, tactics, techniques, and procedures to improve the protection of our space capabilities as they become more and more threatened as time passes. Finally, we have to work with all of you to ensure we have a solid industrial base with the right people leading and working in it. We must continue to rely on you to give us the tools we need, tools that in the future will be capable of going into harm's way, and tools that are lower cost, maybe self-aware and smarter. Now, we can't ignore the very real financial issues our country is facing today. The Secretary of Defense recently announced that he has directed Deputy Secretary Carter and General Dempsey to look across the department to assess where resource adjustments could be made. None of us knows how that review will unfold, but there is no doubt that our space-based systems are expensive and will be part of that review. Regardless of the outcome, we must find ways to drive costs down as we look to the future. Well, I focused on space this evening as I said I would, but I can't really talk about space anymore without bringing cyberspace into the conversation. Space and cyberspace share connection points across both of their domains. And no doubt about it, we have just as many challenges in cyberspace as we do in space. Not only are those challenges operational in nature, but they are also intellectual in nature. Because maybe the greatest threat to our space capability will come through cyberspace. And maybe that threat will come as espionage against your intellectual property. So, this evening I'm going to ask you to lock your doors. Tomorrow's space capabilities are being designed and subsequently are stolen from under our noses. Right now, tonight, someone from halfway around the world is trying to get into your network, looking to steal what you are developing. Espionage saves the spy millions of dollars in investment and years of effort. Espionage is a great way to evaluate our capabilities and design counters to them. The results of espionage mean that in some future conflict, a young American dies, or we lose. No one does space better than our U.S. industry team. That's why cyber spies are after you. So, if I'm one of those people who's going to build a better mousetrap, I'm not going to take the plans and make 1,000 copies and hand them out to everyone on the street corner. But that is essentially what we're doing when we put our most critical proprietary information, let alone state secrets, on an unprotected network connected to the unprotected internet. How can anyone stand up and say, look what happened to me, when their property is stolen if they aren't locking their doors? I know my analogy is way oversimplified. This is a shared responsibility for sure, but each of us has a responsibility. Espionage and theft have been around for as long as human beings have existed. That's why we lock our doors. But spies aren't coming through the doors in your building anymore. They're coming through the doors in your computer. So you better close it, lock it, put controls on it, and alarm it. Cybersecurity requires a whole-of-government approach, and a number of important steps have been taken recently. We know we need a stronger and real-time partnership with industry. Cooperation and collaboration between the government and industry, the military and industry, the warfighters and industry is going to remain important. I think it's going to get more important as we go forward, whether the subject is space or cyberspace. We all are in for some very challenging days ahead. Challenging for the military, for the industry that supports us, and even to our allies. I predict a bumpy road. Financially, geopolitically, and technologically, the way forward has many paths and has a lot of uncertainty. I'm not a pessimist. I don't believe that road is impassable. After all, it shouldn't be impassable to us. We have GPS. We don't even have to stop at the gas station to ask directions. Not that any of you would, but you don't have to. But we need to choose our path very carefully. Those changes occurring as we speak and those coming tomorrow will challenge us. But I've spent the last several years at STRATCOM and before that as the Air Force Space Command Commander watching what all of you do together. As a result, I stand here tonight very confident in our capabilities to defend the nation and our allies, despite our challenges. I'm nothing but encouraged and impressed by the young men and women who we are fortunate enough to have serving in our military today, because they are the ones who endure. They are the ones who are able to handle whatever we send in their direction. Together with them and with you, our industry partners, the future of space and thus our national security has a bright future. Thanks very much for the invitation. I sincerely appreciate everything you do, and I look forward to working with you as time passes into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, General Kaylor. And thank you, Bill Hart and the Raytheon Corporation. Look, if I've crossed any lines tonight, I'm sorry. And from now on, if I ever get up here, General, can I call your wife and run the jokes by her, okay? Is that okay with you? All right. Anyway, also let's thank the El Pomar Foundation as well, and thanks to all of our corporate members. This is all possible because of you. This concludes our dinner. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay warm, and please get home safely. Good night, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.